In the next session, Monica is here to give us practical guidance to make remote work more effective and productive. The session will cover few takeaways: how to create a healthy work-life balance with effective time management, how to stay motivated and focused while overcoming stress and procrastination, how to master virtual meetings, manage relationships with your boss, colleagues, team, along with better communication and collaboration, and tips to build trust, accountability, and engagement among the team. Monica has a long experience dealing with people and processes, programs and projects with global clients and teams to deliver improved outcomes. Monica serves as director on the board of PMI Pearl City Hyderabad chapter, working towards powering the project economy, and she is chairperson of ICT at IGT India Private Limited. Monica, we're waiting for the tips.
Hi, this is Monica Midhum Shetty, and today I'd like to speak with you about remote working and how to make it more effective and productive. Remote working is now become a way of life. It's here to stay, it's the future, and it's only going to grow. Hence, you need to get better at it, whether you like it or you don't. In the pandemic world, everyone was thrown into a forced remote work lifestyle, but not everyone was ready for it, and that caused a lot of issues. But it did make everyone sit up and notice that remote working is actually possible for almost everyone. Yes, it does require considerable amount of time, effort, patience, and of course cost to ensure that you're working out a way of working that's working for you in the long run, for all the people, individuals, teams, and organizations involved. Hence, there is a need to focus and create a unique working model as applicable for you. Over the last 13 years, I have been working with multiple programs and teams across the world, almost always remotely, and hence I would like to share with you some practical guidance that can help you make remote working work for you. In this session, we shall cover some tips to create a healthy work-life balance to stay focused and motivated, avoid procrastination and stress, and also some tips to improve your virtual engagement and meetings while improving collaboration and communication. So what are you waiting for? Let's get started. A team's ability to deliver is highly dependent on the team's ability to communicate and collaborate. And hence, there is a need to focus on these aspects, especially in the remote work environment, to ensure that distance is not hindering a team's ability to deliver. There are multiple ways to do that. Few of them are listed here in today's session. The first thing I would say is set appropriate expectations for all the stakeholders, both internally and externally. The best way to do that is have appropriate working agreements. Working agreements are a great thing to have even in in-person setup when you're working in the office, but while you're working remotely, it's especially helpful. For example, the first one, focus on results and measurable outcomes instead of measuring the number of hours somebody is logging in or the number of tasks they're doing, because this will help you understand whether work is productive. Because a lot of the times people are online, but are they really online? Are they really working on something productive, or are they just surfing the internet? How would you know? Unless you measure the outcomes appropriately, you will not know that. The second thing is to ensure that you are having availability and response times clearly communicated. This is extremely important because while you're in the office, people can see that you're busy, you're typing away on your laptop, or you're writing something, you're taking a phone call, so they know you're not available to have a conversation, so they won't come and disturb you. But in the remote environment, how do they know whether you're at your desk or you're not, whether you're working or you're not? So they don't know when they can reach you and when they cannot. Hence, if you communicate your availability and your response timings, they know when they can reach you or when they can expect a response back from you. Imagine your boss is sending you an email and saying, hey, I need you to look at this. Can you check and respond back to me on an urgent basis? But you've been busy because you've been away for lunch in the next 2 hours and you've not responded back, whether you've seen the email as well. So what should your boss think? Are you missing an action? Are you shirking work? Had you informed that between 12 to 2 you're not going to be available, and hence they know that you're not going to be available, so they'll be expecting a response not before 2 p.m. That helps, right? Absolutely. The next thing is modes of communication. Are everyone aware that where is the communication going to be happening on what platforms? For example, if your team is using SharePoint for sharing documents and some people are referring there, but some people are uploading documents, say, in the Teams group, do people know that they have to refer to Teams group for the documents, or are they still looking at SharePoint and assuming documents not available? Those kind of things do help when you are setting up an expectation that all documents being updated in SharePoint for ABC project, it's going to be available in Teams or wherever you are using. Those kind of modes of communications need to be clearly set up. During an exception, how can people reach you? If you're not available on your email, not available on a call, what's the best way to reach you? Would it be a WhatsApp? Would it be an instant messenger text? How is it? Or can they directly call you? Let them know. Modes of communication need to be clearly set up to ensure availability is there. The next one is face-to-face communication. In the remote environment, a lot of us tend to forget that we are missing out the face-to-face communication, which is going on with our work and we're going on with our meetings, but we forget we're missing all the non-verbal signals which we used to get in the in-person setup. We used to talk to people, we used to understand their body language, we used to understand their the way they are talking, their voice tones, their eyes, their expressions, and that would help us to understand a lot more than what they're just telling us. But that's missing in the remote environment, and hence there is a need to understand that face-to-face communication is extremely important. Build in some time to ensure that you are having that video conversations with the people so that you can engage the people and have that connect and continue to open that channel which enables that you're getting all the non-verbal signals of communication coming through. The last one is regular check-ins. Ensure you're having regular check-ins both individually and at a team level. That will help you to build the connect with your team and the individuals, and also avoids people feeling that they are in working in silos or disconnected. It helps people come together because they feel that they have somebody they can talk to on a regular basis. If they have questions, they know that they don't have to worry about pinging you every 1-2 minutes or 1-2 hours. They know they can park aside their questions and take it up with you in the regular check-ins, or entire team has a particular place where they all come in together and say, all right, how are you doing, how you're not. That entire bonding from a team level, you have appropriate check-ins to have that. In the absence of in-person meetings where people are connecting with each other, we're seeing each other, connecting with each other, you still need to have those check-ins to ensure team connect. The next one is how to run effectively the virtual meetings that you're dealing with. And that's a whole new topic, so we'll talk about it in the upcoming slides. Also, technology. Technology is very, very important in a remote environment. You need to ensure that you have your Wi-Fi set up, your device is working, laptop is up to speed, your software installations are all done, your accesses are there, firewall access, all that information, application access. Ensure that you're up to speed so that work is not getting held up because technologically something is wrong. Everything needs to be up to speed, whether you're in office or remotely working. The last one is security. You do need to ensure that you are abiding by the security policy your organization has mandated you. Remote working is not an excuse to take security easily, because security is non-negotiable. Imagine you're working in your laptop and you just left it unlocked for a few minutes and your kids just walked in and they randomly typed something or clicked something by mistake and landed up sharing some confidential information with somebody you should not be sharing. That would be a very, very unpleasant experience, right? That can be avoided and should be avoided had you been following the security policy that your organization mandated. Hence, do follow that. Stress is unavoidable wherever you're working from, whether you're working in the office or you're working remotely. But the thing is that when you're working from home, there are different ways that you can get stressed. The important thing is to understand what is causing the stress, identify it, and then have a plan of action to deal with it. There are a few things that I think are very, very common for most of the people in working in remote environment, and hence I have picked that up to share with you today. The first one is your work desk. How is your work desk? Do you have a separate work desk? Is it clean? Do you have some distractions in and around your work desk that may be impacting you and adding more stress during work time? Stress that's not required to be taken up during your work time. Imagine you're logging into a work call and you have been talking about something very seriously, and then suddenly you realize a stack of bills kept right next to your laptop. Is that going to be adding some stress? I believe so. The other thing is, Are you moving away from your desk when you're taking breaks? I hope you're taking breaks in the first place. If you're not, please do take breaks because that's absolutely required. But when you are taking breaks, ensure that you're moving away from your desk. And that's important because your body and mind needs to realize this is time out. This is break time. This is the time I need to de-stress. Unless you move aside, you don't really realize, but you're still in that work mode and the de-stressing is not really happening. The next one is how to avoid getting overwhelmed in the remote environment when you have a lot of things to be doing parallelly at home, at work. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. So you need to be cautious about what are the things that are causing you to get overwhelmed. And the best way to deal with that is create a list. These are the things that are causing you to get overwhelmed, prioritize them, and then if possible, break them down into smaller tasks. If the tasks are quite simple and you've already planned when you're going to deal with that, that's less likely to cause stress, right? Managing expectations is very important, both at home and at work, because that's going to be the reason which is causing stress to not only you, but the other people around you as well. While you're logging into a conference call with your bosses, supervisors, and talking very seriously about something, and suddenly you realize that your spouse is taking another call from somewhere nearby, and there's a lot of disturbance because you can hear their conversation, they can hear your conversation. I'm sure everybody on both the calls are going to be thinking, what's just happening? It's very distracting, right? That could have been avoided had you let your spouse know that I'm going to be taking a call from this place for this duration. Can you take a call if you have to from another location so that there's no disturbance? Or write a note, put it on the door and say that between this to this time, don't disturb me, I'm taking a call. So people in your family know that they cannot disturb you. You can also deal it in the other way with your boss or your people from the office. Let them know that between 4 to 5 you may not be able to take some calls because you have some issues which may be causing a distracting environment. So the environment is not appropriate to take calls during that time. So you're not going to be on calls, but you'll be available on the instant messenger, on the emails, and if they need to reach you, they can still reach you. It's a great way. Manage expectations. Also, remember to take time to recharge yourself. Me time, absolutely important, especially in the remote environment, because you need to have time to recharge. While you're running between doing stuff for work, doing stuff for home, you kind of forget that you need some time, some break time to spend time on yourself, to recharge yourself. That is your specific me time. Take time out to do what feeds your soul. It may be reading a book, it may be indulging in some hobbies, whatever it is that works for you, do that. Physical exercise is another thing which is extremely important. If you're somebody like me who kind of finds excuses not to do physical activity, even more important for you. Build some time into your calendar daily so that you're doing something about this and not shirking away physical activity. While in office, we don't realize, but you're actually doing a lot of walking around, a lot of physical activity. We're walking up to other people's desks, talking to people, taking breaks, moving away from our work desk, stepping into meeting rooms, walking around to take printouts. There are so many things we don't even realize that you're walking around. But while you're in home, you're kind of just sitting in the same place. You're not moving around, getting stagnant, and it's very easy to just get complacent and comfortable and lazy. Avoid that. It adds really a lot of stress. Switching off at the end of the day is very, very important, both for your laptop systems and all the apps, and also for you personally. But we also need to bear in mind that transition time, as in the decompression pad, is also extremely important while you're shifting gears between work and home. While you're in the office, you don't realize, but you actually have this transition time built into your schedule in something called commute. As you're traveling from home to office and from office to home, you actually have this time where you're getting used to that, okay, now I'm moving from a home setup to a work setup or vice versa. It kind of helps you to become mentally prepared about where you're getting into, what's the mode that you need to activate in your mind. But when you're working remotely, you kind of don't do that. You just like shut your laptop and you're like, okay, let me get to home stuff now. And that's not good because there's a lot of lag carrying around it and the stress adding on to it. So what you really need to do is identify what to deal with in this transition time. Maybe decide that you're going to wrap up whatever happened for the day and then just think about what you have to do the next day. And after you do that, you're going to just spend some time, say, maybe catching up on some personal emails, reading something, whatever it is that helps you do this transition appropriately, have plan for that and deal with that. Also, Avoiding procrastination is extremely important to reduce stress, and we'll talk about it in the upcoming slides. And managing interruptions, very, very important. So, how to beat procrastination and get more done? Multiple ways to do that as well. The first one, track all your tasks that you need to get done from home, from office, and then allocate time in the calendar or diary. That will help your mind to get freed up from these tasks about thinking when to do what, how to do that, and all that thing which is causing that stress and which is making you think that, okay, this I can do tomorrow, let me do that now, let me do this tomorrow, let me do this now. Those kind of conversations are going to get avoided. So then you're going to be dealing with what you need to deal with right now. When you come to the time which you have allocated for that task in your calendar, go ahead and do that. Do not postpone it. Stick to the time that you've allocated. That will help you to avoid procrastination. It will also help your mind to get freed up and focus on the task that you really need your mind to focus on. It's something like, clearing the RAM and ensuring that your system is working better. Same thing with your brains. The next thing which can help you to avoid procrastination is breaking it down to smaller tasks. And we spoke about it in the previous slide. Do that. It's helpful. If that does not work, why don't you try starting your day with the most daunting task of the day? I know it's not something that you would like to do, but imagine that you're logging into the day and you realize that, okay, I've got to do this task. I'm really not looking forward to it. And let me just push it off to later part of the day. Let me just keep on pushing it off. Maybe from now to later part of the day, from later part of the day to tomorrow, and then so on and so forth. But how about you start your day and say, okay, I don't like this thing. Let me deal with it right now. The first thing in the day, when I'm worrying about it, I'll deal with it and get it done and over with. What happens after that is that the rest of the day seems like a piece of cake because the worst part of the day is already done and over with. May not be always possible because the rest part of the day may also be a little difficult, but at least you don't have to be worrying about that big task that you were worrying about earlier. Routine is a great way to deal with procrastination. Once you get used to a routine, you'll just follow that, especially if you're somebody who likes to follow routine. And if you are somebody like that, stick to that. Allocate time in your calendar like we spoke about earlier and stick to that routine. So that there's no conversation, no room for conversation or debating that why this now, why this not later, and why to spend that time right now. It's something similar to somebody who's waking up at 7 a.m. in the morning every day is not going to question why wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning. They would rather just wake up and get on with the day. But somebody who's waking up at 7 a.m. in the morning one day, 5 a.m. another day, 8 a.m. one day, 9 a.m. another day, they are more prone to questioning why now, why not later, and push off that waking time to later part of the day. So if routine is something that works for you, try that. It will be helpful. Pomodoro technique is also a great way to deal with procrastination, especially for tasks that require high intensity work. If you're thinking about a big task that needs to get done and you're like, I don't have the time right now, so I'm going to push it off to later, instead of that, why don't you try the Pomodoro technique and say, all right, I'll break it down into 25 minutes of high intensity work and I'm going to focus on that uninterrupted time for 25 minutes and just focus on that. I'm not going to worry about anything else, just on that one activity. High intensity work, 25 minutes, then a break, and again 25 minutes of high intensity work. That will actually help you get more done in those little breaks, allocate those times and focus only on that particular section, not worrying about anything else. It's also a great way to get more work done in less time because you're focused on that particular activity. Enjoying your work is of course something that's recommended by everybody, and if you find ways to enjoy your work, you will not be finding ways to procrastinate it. For example, you're thinking about doing that Excel work that you're not really looking forward to, and you know it's very, very boring, but you just have to do it, but because you're not looking forward, you're trying to find excuses to push it out. How about you try and find a way to enjoy it? Maybe play some fantastic music. While you listen to the music, you're just doing this work on the Excel, work is getting done, you're enjoying the music, so you're not pushing out it. The other way to do that is incentivize yourself, maybe reward yourself. Say that, okay, if I have to get 4 leads for this work, if I get 2 leads done, I'm going to treat myself to, say, maybe a chocolate, a biryani, or just watch that pending movie on Netflix. Now, because you want to do that movie, or you want to see that movie, or you want to have that biryani or the chocolate, you'll be more focused on getting this task done instead of pushing it off to later. And don't cheat. Don't go and have that reward before you finish that task. That's going to be your motivation to get that task done and not pushed off. Another way to deal with that is do it as a teamwork activity. Find other people, maybe your team, members, some team members of 6 to 8 people, whoever you find are going to be focused in doing this activity. Come on video and decide, all right, for the next 1 hour, let's do this and let's not get interrupted. And just focus on that 1 hour and get that work done on video. So there's no scope for cheating. If somebody's cheating, you're like, hey, you're not doing your work, get back to it. It's fun, it's competition, and people to get more work done, avoiding pushing it out. Another way to deal with that is maybe set up a taskmaster. It can be somebody from your family, your spouse, your siblings, or somebody virtual, your team member or anyone. Just remind them and tell them that I've got to get this task done. I'm not doing it. Can you keep reminding me about it? So every time they're like, hey, did you do that task? And you're like, no, I didn't. I'll do it tomorrow. And then eventually you're like, I can't say that I didn't anymore. So I'd rather get ahead and do that now. Whatever works for you, find your ways of procrastination avoiding and do that. These are a few things that I have come up with. The other one is managing interruptions, and now we'll talk about it. The first way to deal with that is avoid seeming to be available all the time. If you have appropriate technology, use that. Optimally use that technology if possible to ensure your availability status is communicated to the people who you think are going to be interrupting you in the workday. Maybe update your calendar. Let people know that your availability is between 9 to say 7 p.m. Let them know that between 9 to 12 you may be available for anything that they need to reach you. Between 12 to 4 you're not going to be available. You're in do not disturb mode because you're going to be working on stuff that you need to work on, and also lunch, which is going to be your away time with family time. And then between 4 to 5 people may reach you if they need to, but you will decide basis what comes up on that day and as something like that. Use color codes if required in your calendar so that people can easily recognize when they can ping you, when they cannot. Instant Messenger, a lot of the people use Instant Messenger appropriately, and maybe that's something that you can use as well. A lot of the organizations have these instant messengers like Microsoft Teams, Skype, Slack, whatever it is. You can update your status saying that you're available, you're in a meeting, you're in a do not disturb mode. That may be helpful. But be cautious and do that appropriately. There are a few people who randomly use these statuses for, setting wrong expectations, because you'll find people who are available 24/7. But of course they're not available 24/7, right? They're going to be sleeping sometime in the day. What that does is sets wrong expectations, because then people think that you're available every day, anytime. So if they're paying you very late or sometime when you're not available, they're expecting a response from you and you're not able to respond. So they're going to think either you're missing in action or you're shirking work. Also, if you're updating your status as away all through the day, there are some people who do that as well, putting your status as away all through the day, but still responding when people are pinging you. What that's going to do is letting people think that even when you're away, you're available, which is again, wrong expectation setting. So plan your calendar, ensure availability is aware to all the people who are going to be reaching you, even at home. If required, draw up a chart, let people know that in my workday between so and so time, don't disturb me. I'm not going to be able to take your conversations. So nobody's going to come and say, hey, can you come out? I need you to help for this. They know that between this time to this time, they cannot disturb you. Also look for ways for dealing with chatty people such that you can encourage communication over emails, text, instant messenger chats, instead of an audio video call, if that's possible and if that's applicable. Because we all know people who are very, very chatty and they just randomly ping you and say, I need to talk to you. Do you have a minute? And you know that minute is not going to be a minute, it's going to get extended into a 10-minute conversation. Or a 10-minute conversation may actually get spilled over to a 20, 30-minute conversation. So how about dealing with it in a way saying that, okay, I'm caught up with something right now. Why don't you send me an email and I will check it up and I'll respond back to you? Or park it aside for a later part of the day when you can take up all these interruptions. And that's a great way too. Parking all the interruptions, creating a list of all the interruptions and saying that, okay, these are the kind of interruptions that I'm going to be getting in the day. So why don't I make a list of it and have a timed slot to deal with these interruptions later in the day? And say that, okay, during my day, between say 4 to 5 p.m., I'm going to deal with all the work interruptions. And maybe 5 to 6 p.m., I'll deal with all the home interruptions. I don't know, I'm just giving an example. Pick what works for you. Working agreements is also a great way to deal with interruptions because that sets the pace and the expectations. And we spoke about it earlier. Availability, response time, so people don't keep pinging you saying that, I sent you an email, can you respond on that? Did you look at that? If you have a working expectation saying that when you send me an email, I'm going to respond back to you in half an hour or 1 hour, 2 hour, there are not going to be those interruptions coming up, right? Check-ins and all those things. We spoke about it earlier. These days, we have so many virtual meetings that dealing effectively with virtual meetings is pretty much like a life skill if you want to survive in remote working lifestyle. And here are a few quick tips to help you. The first thing I would recommend is please consider whether meeting is really required. A lot of the times people are just used to just setting up a meeting and then realizing that that could have just been an email. See if you really need a meeting. If you do need a meeting, please keep it crisp. Ensure that you are allocating the enough time for that planned agenda and allocating the invite only to go to the respective people who need to be on the call. Avoid these keeping in loop kind of participants where everybody has to be there on the meeting when they're not really required. Avoid agenda which is pretty much flexible and everybody can talk about anything and everything that comes up. And the time, please stick to the time that you've set up and avoid setting up like a 1 hour meeting for something which is only about a half an hour conversation. Time is important, time is money. Be cautious about that. Also, while you're talking about time is money, remember that remote meetings is not an excuse to be late. Start a meeting on time and end it on time, just like you would in an in-person meeting. In fact, even more, because now you know that there's going to be so many virtual meetings, people are going to get crazy if all the meetings keep overflowing into the others. The mute button is another one. You really need to use it. I think in the last year, the most common dialogue has been, sorry, I was talking on mute. Or, sorry, I forgot to put myself on mute. How many times have you heard that? Too many, right? The mute button is there for a reason. Please use it appropriately. And of course, remember that for any virtual meeting, you need to join from a quiet background, non-distracting background. And that's basic meeting etiquette, right? Because if there's so much distraction, who's going to focus on the voices? Also, remember to park aside some time in the virtual environment for the casual conversations, social interactions, especially when you are missing all those, in-person connects, the coffee breaks, the bonding, the water cooler conversations. You need to have time to catch up with your people and bond with them. If required, have planned break times, maybe coffee break virtually, everybody's on video and having their coffee break together. Decide what works for you, but have that time for the meeting. In fact, if that does not work for you, you can also plan for regular meetings, but maybe if a meeting is for like 30 minutes, have like the initial few minutes or the last few minutes just to catch up on how people are doing. Just asking about how they are, how the family is, how's the situation at home. Also, the last thing, please be mindful. There may be multiple exceptions and there may be multiple things that you've planned for, but a lot of the times some exceptions come up which you've not planned for, or even if you've planned for, it doesn't go as per your plan. And there are going to be things like that. So you cannot really be worried about, oh my God, this happened. How do I deal with it? How can I do it? There will be times where you've logged in from a quiet environment, you started the meeting on time, you've following all the meeting etiquettes, quiet background. But suddenly the door opens and your kids are running in and you're like, Mom, I want your help on this, or Dad, I need to do this. That's unavoidable, right? It's going to happen sometime for some people, one time or the other. So be mindful, with work encroaching upon our home spaces, we need to be understanding of each other's capabilities and responsibilities and understand that they may need some time to adapt and get used to the remote work lifestyle. While we are talking about remote work lifestyle, it is only important to remember that we spoke about the face-to-face communication. And I know you're going to be setting up some time for face-to-face communication, hopefully. So here are some tips that can help you for acing those video meetings. 1, please dress smartly. We don't want you to log into meetings in your pajamas. We don't want you to log into meetings looking like a zombie just out of bed. That is not going to be a good impression that you want to set up for the people on the other side. Also ensure that you're looking at the camera, keep it at the eye level. There's no way talk to people if you are not going to be looking at them, just as you would an in-person conversation. Of course, if you're presenting a slide deck and you need to look at the slides, it's understandable. But when you're having those one-to-one meetings, those heart-to-heart conversations, those team bonding connects, You need to ensure that you're looking at people, because that's a great way to also pick up on the non-verbal signals, right? Their emotions, their expressions, whether they're smiling, whether the smiles are reaching their eyes, how are their hand movements, what is their body language, what are they trying to convey. Great way to get all that information. But of course, remember, same as earlier, remember to join your video meetings from a quiet background and a non-distracting background. You don't want communication going which is not expected to be going. There are also a few things that you must avoid in video meetings. In fact, virtual meetings rather. There are a few things that you really need to be cautious about to ensure that your virtual meetings are effective. Few of them are like avoiding the red herrings and the rabbit holes. And that's applicable even in your in-person meetings. When I say red herrings, I pretty much mean avoid picking up conversation which is not there on agenda. People tend to mislead some conversation and start talking about details which are nothing related to the topic that you had in mind for the agenda, or start talking about details in too much information, too much detailed, and you're seeing that the conversation is pretty much going into a rabbit hole, and that amount of detail is not required for that audience for that time, because if you start going there, you're not going to be able to cover the planned agenda in the planned time. The best way to deal with that is let them know, hey, I know this is a great topic. Why don't we take it offline, have a separate call with people A, B, C, D, and then talk about it in detail and come and report back. I think that will be a great way to deal with that. The other way is to also remember that avoid distractions and avoid sharing non-related content on your screen. While you're working remotely, you also need to be cautious about your environment. Are you in the right environment? Different people tend to react differently in different environments and different work styles and all of that. So there is a need to understand people and their ways of working to understand whether that way of working is working for you. There are people who are introverts, there are people who are extroverts, and there are people in between who kind of tend to toggle between the two extremes based on the situation and the environment. What is it that's working? It's usually assumed that introverts tend to adapt to remote working more easily, whereas extroverts tend to be a little more not ready for remote environment because they need the social interactions, they need that buzz with the people around, which keeps them going and recharges them to work on that day. But the thing is, it's not always true, because what about those people who toggle between the two? There may be some people who are not introverts, but they still like social interactions and they feed off social interactions with some people. And vice versa, there may be some extroverts, but they need some specific time which they can focus on activities and they don't want social interaction. So there's going to be a mix. So you need to understand what is it that is working for you and then accordingly deal with that. You need to ask yourself a couple of questions to understand whether you're in the right environment or not. Are you feeling more stressed? If yes, do you know what's causing the stress? Do you have a plan of action for it? Are you having enough social interactions? If not, what can you do about it? Can you join some social groups? Maybe that's going to help you connect with the people. The other way is do you have a separate workspace? Some people tend to log in from their work desk, which is a part of the bedroom. But some people would prefer to have a separate workroom study because that's going to be something that needs specific focus, a specific area, work area. So you need to know what is working for you. Accordingly, see that. The other way to deal with is to understand, do you prefer routine or variety? We spoke about routine earlier, right? So if you're with a routine, great, stick to the routine. But if variety is something works for you and you're like, I can't log in from the same work desk every day because I can't move around, why not try to move around your workspace? Maybe log in from the dining table at times, the living room table at times, from another room at times. Maybe sit in the balcony for a couple of hours. If that is the variety that you're looking for, maybe it's helpful. Also, is there any specific travel time or personal activities that you need to plan for? If yes, plan your calendar accordingly so that your environment supports your work calendar and your calendar is not getting impacted with the environment around you. Of course, health is extremely important, both physical and mental, and hence you need to ensure that you are giving it the importance it deserves so that you're not able to use that as an excuse and say, I'm feeling too stressed or I'm not ready to support what I need to do on the long run. If you ignore this, it's going to impact you. May not be right now, right away, but in the long run, it is going to impact. You just have to see. So I would recommend to focus on this. And we spoke about this, multiple times earlier. Are you getting enough exercise? Are you doing enough of activities that are recharging you? Are you doing stuff that de-stress you? Are you thinking about how stressed you are, how lonely you are? Are you dealing with that? Are you dealing with potential causes or potential symptoms of loneliness and boredom? All of that. Are you getting appropriate exercise, food, sleep? All of that you need to focus on. And I would also recommend think about, are you getting enough fresh air and natural light? Because that's very important for your mind and body to remain healthy. As I synopsize, I'd like to say remote working is not rocket science. So don't get too overwhelmed with it. Don't overthink it, because overanalysis leads to paralysis is what they say. So keep it simple and just focus on what's working, what's not working. If something is not working, identify it and have a plan of action to deal with it. But you need to remember that you may know most of the times that what should be done, what should not be done, but a lot of the times you just don't do it because it's not convenient or it's not easy enough for you. It just seems difficult. Self-discipline is the key driving factor. Do what you should be doing so that you're able to sustain this in a long-term mode. Communication is also extremely important. You need to ensure that you're communicating appropriately with the right people at the right time. Are you getting enough communication done? Are you using the right modes? All of that needs to be thought about. And we spoke about health, mental and physical. Remember that. Do not neglect it. Also, remember to be a role model, be professional, be mindful. You cannot expect people to do something which you're not doing yourself. So if you're telling people, hey, be online at 9 a.m., you be online at 9 a.m. too. Or at least let the expectations know why you're not online at 9 a.m. And the main thing here I would also say is, please remember the why. Do not lose track and do not lose focus of the big picture. As I wrap up, I'd like to say, we spoke about so many tips and techniques today, and I hope it's useful for you and you can pick up most of them and apply them in your life and see the benefits out of it. I'm sure you will say that some of them may not be applicable for you, or you do not like some of them, not suitable for you. Understandable, but certainly there would be many which would be applicable, and you can pick it up and you'll see that when you start trying them out. So try that out and see what works for you. Derive a unique way of working that works for you and your teams. I would like to say, be yourself, be unique, but just be focused on working on yourself and improving and becoming a better version of yourself as you move ahead. Thank you.